Mortgage rates are getting a little help this morning, but despite the headlines, the Treasury isn't riding to the rescue. Bond markets are modestly stronger this morning, but the most likely reason is pretty simple. Fuel prices dropped overnight. Lower fuel prices ease inflation concerns, which generally is good for bonds and mortgage rates. But there's another story getting attention today that deserves some explanation. Is the Treasury buying bonds again? Well, yes, but this is not the same as the Federal Reserve quantitative easing. Treasury officials have discussed using money from the Treasury General Account to fund additional purchases of longer-term Treasury bonds. Think of the TGA as the federal government's checking account. Money flows into it from things like taxes, tariffs, proceeds from issuing Treasury debt. The Treasury can use those funds to buy back existing government bonds. But here's the important distinction. The Treasury is rearranging how government debt is financed. It isn't creating new money. That's very different from quantitative easing, when the Federal Reserve creates reserves to purchase bonds with the specific goal of influencing financial conditions and pushing longer-term borrowing costs lower. Why doesn't this automatically lower mortgage rates? Well, Treasury buybacks can influence which maturities perform better than others, something known as changing the shape of the yield curve. But they can't simply suppress interest rates across the entire bond market. That's why, despite headlines about the government buying bonds, investors haven't responded with a massive rally. And we've seen this movie before. What's actually helping mortgage rates today? The much simpler explanation is lower fuel prices. We've spent months watching this relationship between fuel prices, inflation concerns, bond yields, and mortgage rates. So that's a much better explanation for today's modest improvement than the Treasury announcement. I hope this information helps. If it does, give me a like and a follow, and I hope you have a great day.